The following is an exclusive presentation of News Radio KMAN, your home for K-State athletics. This is Wildcat Insider with the voice of the Wildcats, Wyatt Thompson, and KMAN Sports Director, Mitch Fortner.
Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Insider, News Radio KMAN. As tonight, pretty big one inside of Bramlage Coliseum, as K-State men's basketball will host the fourth-ranked Kansas Jayhawks in the first of two meetings this season between the Cats and Jayhawks. I'm Mitch Fortner, joined here in just a moment via phone line because he has got a busy night tonight. That is Wyatt Thompson, the voice of the Cats, plus AJ Shaw is on our board today. And the phone number, of course, is 537-1350. It's certainly in hour number 2 we can take your phone calls. Now, before we start covering the Cats here, did want to pass this along because if you've been listening to K-Man today, you may have heard a couple of promotions and maybe on the morning show, Troy Coverdale talk about this, and that is Briggs Auto Lane presents Passport to Cabo. That's right, we are giving away an 8-day, 7-night, all-expense-paid trip next February to Cabo San Lucas with a 2-bedroom beachfront condo at Villa La Valencia. And if you want to go give that a quick Google, check that place out, you'll know that we're not messing around with this. And a flight for 2 out of Manhattan Regional Airport is included in that as well. So additional details, we'll start announcing that on Monday, but we wanted to give you a heads up that we have a big giveaway taking place over the next few months. That is Briggs Auto Lane Passport to Cabo. So we are very excited about that. And also very excited to bring along the voice of the Cats, Wyatt Thompson. Wyatt, thanks for your time. Thanks for squeezing me in during this busy Monday.
Well, it has been a busy one so far and will continue to be, but good to be on with you, partner. Are you good? Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm okay. I mean, Cats have lost 4 in a row. I wish that could be a lot better, but, right now it is what it is. The Cats have ran into a bit of a rough patch lately with the Big 12 schedule getting tougher, and 4 losses in a row. Wasn't really expecting that, but hopefully they can turn it around today against the Kansas Jayhawks. What a perfect timing that would be to knock off your arch rival in a sold-out Bramlage Coliseum. Let's take a look back, Wyatt, to last week, and let's start with the Oklahoma game. We've seen it now twice this year where there's been 2 really rough halves in Bramlage, and Jerome Tang has only lost 3 home games so far in his almost 2 years at K-State. Well, that first one was a second half really rough stretch against the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and then this last week against Oklahoma with a really tough first half. And I wanted to start there where K-State, they don't even score a field goal till 10:30 left to go in the first half. Meanwhile, K-State was still playing some really good defense. It was just offensively a really tough start for the Cats to get out and play well against the Sooners, and they can never battle back and take the lead.
That's so well said, and I don't know that I've ever done a game where you go to the second media timeout and one team hasn't scored yet. It was remarkable for me on several fronts, but especially with the fact that, as jaw-dropping as that sounds, the fact that you're still in the game because you were playing pretty darn good defense was also, I think, a positive in a very negative first half. You shoot 50%, the opponents, I'm saying. Kansas State shoots 23%, and you're down 35-19, and you just can never recover. Very frustrating because you rarely witness anything quite like that, especially in the friendly confines of Bramlage Coliseum. It just made no sense. But give Oklahoma credit. I'm sure you will agree with this. They were the most aggressive team right out of the gate, not by an overabundance, but I thought they played really well early. And as that started to take shape, they really captured their confidence, didn't they? I mean, Sam Godwin was really good. McCollum's just a solid player. I thought Jalen Moore maybe played one of his best games as a Sooner. So those guys, they did a nice job. Got to give them credit.
Yeah, K-State, what I thought was a real big problem was Tyler Perry was trying to take over the game. Really, it felt like all by himself, and he scored 23 points. Mm-hmm. He found a little bit more of that Marquise Noel leadership where as he zigzags to the hoop, he actually got to the hoop and got some layups up in a couple of and ones. But obviously what had to be a key factor at the end of the day is Arthur Kaluma and Cam Carter only combined for 9 points, and they just didn't shoot well from the field.
Well, that's it. And they go, 3 for 20 combined and 0 for 10 from 3, and that's just not anywhere in the hemisphere of what Arthur and Cam have done all year long. And I thought Tyler did an okay job of kind of trying to keep K-State in it. David Gasson had 9 points, but Will McNair didn't play very well from my perspective. That's just too much to overcome when you think about how well Oklahoma played, how well they shot the ball, how much K-State struggled offensively, and 2 of your 3 star guys just have an off night, really, and you just never make it work.
Yeah, it's interesting stretches as K-State really from 3 did not have it all night long. They finished 4 of 28, but they started 0 for 11. Then they went on to hit, 4 of their next 7. So there was a nice stretch there for a minute, and Tyler Perry was a huge part of that. He had 3 of them. He was 3 of 10, and then ended the game 0 for 10. Now, this was also coming back from, it's a 2-game losing streak. You're back at home. Did you feel like heading into the game against Oklahoma, this would have been a much better matchup for K-State as they were trying to correct a lot of things, and that was, where they're trying to guard without fouling and do a better job rebounding and also got to correct the turnover issues. Did you think that Oklahoma matchup was going to be better for K-State to correct those things?
Well, I kind of did going into it, but only because you're back home and after a very difficult trip with the very, very close loss and the controversy at Iowa State, and then just, pretty much getting raced at Houston, rather. You just kind of feel like with the juice of being in Bramlage and being back home that can help you, but it not that it didn't help some, but they just started so poorly they could never get past that. But I will say this, and sometimes we make the mistake of not looking at the other side of the coin. Think about what Oklahoma did. They had gone 0-2 at home in their previous 2 games, and then they have to come in here and play in one of the most difficult environments in the league and played really solid basketball. I think you have to tip your cap to them because they had back-to-back roadies. After they left here, they went to UCF, and they never led in that game. So they spent some energy here, and you take a split, I suppose, in this league every time because, it's just what they're 4-5 in the league now, just like K-State. So it's hard, no doubt.
K-State gets really crushed in the paint, 40-18 in favor of Oklahoma. But K-State never gave up. I mean, they got within 7 points, and then after they got within 7, it's a timeout for Oklahoma and Porter Mosier, he was also really upset about something. A review didn't go his way, but ever since that took place, it was really all Sooners from there, and K-State's spirits kind of left them as they didn't look too thrilled to be out there in the final 6 minutes or so of the game. And I mean, plus why we all know when you're playing in the Octagon of Doom, it doesn't matter what home team is playing, whoever you want to talk about in college basketball, if you have the home crowd, yes, that can be a big advantage, but clearly you got to give them something to cheer for. You got to have something for them to really care about. And it kind of goes back to that rough stretch there to begin the game that there just wasn't a whole lot to cheer for. You got a minute, but then you didn't finish.
Yeah, and I would add to what you're saying. You mentioned getting crushed in the paint 40-18. That wasn't just Sam Godwin either necessarily,
right,
or second chance points, but it was Jalen Moore off the dribble. Javian McCollum was just a handful off the bounce. Otega Owe only made 2 shots all night, but I'm going to guess both of them were off the dribble. And I thought Suarez was really good too. He had 10 and 5. With an assist in the game. And so you put all of that together, and then you look at 19 points off K-State turnovers because the Cats had the 14 turnovers and only had 8 assists on only 16 made field goals. It was just, I think what we've described here in the last few minutes was a very, very frustrating night, maybe one of the most frustrating offensive nights that K-State has endured in a long, long time.
We're joined by the voice of the Wildcats, Wyatt Thompson, here on Wildcat Insider. Wyatt, then Saturday, at a 1 o'clock tip-off in Stillwater, Oklahoma. That was another loss for K-State. Really disappointing loss with the Cowboys being the worst team in the Big 12. They're struggling, no Bryce Thompson, and Cats lose 75-72, which I guess it really was a tale of 2 halves. Before we really break down this game, what was the environment like? I was expecting Gallagher-Iba to be somewhat of a ghost town.
Well, that's probably right on the money. And I would also add that I had heard a couple of, they announced the attendance at 7623, and that's probably tickets sold. I think there was probably more like, I'm going to just guess maybe 4,500 to 5 in the house, and that may be a little bit above. But the interesting part for me was, and I mean this sincerely, I think over a third were wearing purple. That's the second year in a row K-State has gone down there and has really had a good showing of Wildcat fans. And unfortunately, K-State didn't get it done. They got off to a good start, I thought. They tweaked the lineup a little bit, jumped out to that lead of 24-17, and I thought that was one of the key parts of the game because they were doing some good things. It wasn't perfect, but solid. And then the next thing you know, you see a 12-0 Oklahoma State run, and after being the better team for 15 of the first 20 minutes, you go down into halftime down to 29-27. That just had to sting like crazy, right? I mean, it just shouldn't have been that way.
Yeah, the lineup change was that Will McNair and David Gasson, they didn't start. Now, Will McNair did come off the bench and go 6 of 7 from the floor, 12 points and 9 rebounds, and we know that he's had certainly his up and downs in Big 12 play, maybe more downs than ups as of late. But I'll ask you about David. I mean, what to you was the impact in that game against Oklahoma State, where David, because of he's dealing with the foot injury that he has to be really limited and had to beg to get into the game in the second half.
Well, and begging's a good way to put it. He really was pleading to go in. And I guess I have to just come clean here, full disclosure. I didn't realize David was struggling as much as he was with what they said was some knee tendonitis, and I think that was the biggest deal. And Coach Tang said after the game in the press conference that he honestly really didn't want to play David, but that got to the point where he had no choice. So that made it most difficult, and I think they wanted to shake up the lineup a little bit and give Day-Day an opportunity, and frankly, Jarrell probably an opportunity too because of what Will had done lately. It makes sense, but not having David certainly was a factor, I think, and it was a factor too that OSU was playing without Bryce Thompson. But I'm going to tell you the truth. The guy that they inserted into the lineup to replace Bryce Thompson was Keon Williams. And I don't know if you've looked at his line score, dude, but he had 17 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, made 6 of 13 shots, and I thought was the single best player on the floor most of the day, just in terms of his ability to be in overdrive, and meaning playing hard for all of the minutes that he was in there. He played almost 36 minutes. He was a real key in the game, in my mind.
And a couple of things that really turned out to be crushing about K-State's effort, because I think you can take away some positives, but maybe then you switch to the negatives and it canceled out the positive. And I really like that K-State did score 45 points in the second half. You get a combined 50 points, Wyatt, from Arthur, Tyler, and Cam after Arthur and Cam really struggled to score against Oklahoma. Tyler is really starting to put the team on his back, at least trying to be that leader, the point guard that this team really wants him to be. But then on the flip side, the defense gives up 46 points. And I'll ask you this, Wyatt, the defense, did they take a step back or 2 steps back in this game against Oklahoma State?
Probably so. I think probably so. And the reason I say that is, and again, I guess you can make out of numbers anything you want to, but this one is pretty hard to top, I think. OSU in the first half made only 10 of 32 shots, but in the second half shot 59.3%, which tops K-State's second half effort of 56.3. I mean, it's pretty hard to beat anybody on their home floor in the half when you're down by 2. If you're going to let them shoot nearly 60%, your chances of winning are pretty slim. And yet K-State had a chance or two. I really liked their fight. I didn't like the way the game finished in the last couple of minutes, but I thought they were competing. But it's we've said this a lot here, and that's what happens when you lose 4 in a row. But that was a disappointing game from the standpoint of you were playing the team with the worst record in the league, albeit on their floor, and I think we all feel like K-State's the better team and yet didn't win the game.
I mean, you look at the second half, I mean, it was pretty even. I mean, K-State was trying to go blow for blow, and you can even see that vice versa. Oklahoma State was trying to go blow for blow, but they were also, I mean, they were hitting shots at the end of the first half, and then it seemed like there for a while they couldn't miss there in the second half, and they had a number of guys scoring. I mean, Oklahoma State finished with, let me count this up, 5 guys in double figures. 5 guys in double figures.
Yeah, and they made 9 of 26 threes, which isn't just mind-blowing necessarily, except you go just to that second half, and they're 6 out of 12, and K-State was 6 of 13. K-State played good enough offense to win the game, but in the second half, their defense was not good enough. And I probably should have mentioned a couple of guys that I thought really helped Oklahoma State too. And really, honestly, both of them probably were a little bit of a surprise. And one was Jamiron Keller, the freshman. He had 12 points and a total of 4 rebounds in a little less than 25 minutes, and he had not been doing a whole lot lately. And then I got to go back to Keon Williams. I just thought he was a real key guy. And then Javon Small, he's a really good player. I like him a lot, but he's not a three-point shooter. But if you look at the box score, he makes 3 threes, goes 3 out of 5, and that was really big for OSU too. They needed a win. Their backs were to the wall, and they found a way.
The voice of the Cats, Wyatt Thompson, joins us here in the first hour of Wildcat Insider over the phone as he gets ready for his broadcast tonight, which starts at 7 o'clock for pregame coverage. And that is against the 18-4 Kansas Jayhawks, who are now number 4 in the country after this past Saturday, taking care of Houston at home and in very impressive fashion. And again, tip off a little after 8 o'clock. And if you want to listen to Manhattan High basketball tonight, they host Washburn Rule. That'll be an online-only broadcast, newsradiokman.com. As at 6 o'clock, we will have the Jeff Mitty Show. We'll take a break, one more segment with Wyatt when we come back, and we'll take a look at the Kansas Jayhawks next on Wildcat Insider. Back on Wildcat Insider, Mitch Fortner with the voice of the Cats, Wyatt Thompson, who calls in today as the Cats get set for the Kansas Jayhawks. Big one in Bramlage tonight. It is a sold-out crowd. I'm sure students are already lining up, and they've been out there for quite some time as KU and K-State tip off at 8 o'clock. Pre-game coverage here at 7 with Wyatt Thompson and Sten Weber on the broadcast. Wyatt, we take a look now at the Kansas Jayhawks, who are 18-4. They are coming off an extremely impressive win over Houston, and KU was actually, I believe, an underdog going into that game, according to Vegas, and Kansas wins by 13 points, 78-65. They really broke it open in that first half, and it was an even game in the second half. We can actually start there. I mean, Kansas was just offensively doing what they wanted to do, especially inside, scoring 78% of their two-point shots, which happened to be their final points for the game. They really got after the best defense in the nation.
They did. It's remarkable for me to have watched Houston not that long ago on a Saturday down there, a week ago yesterday, or a couple of days ago, and know what they did defensively to K-State, and then see Kansas light them up, making 31 of 45 shots, almost 69%. That's remarkable. And Houston gave up 43 to Kansas in the first half alone. And KU just overwhelmed them, killed them on the glass, outscored them 42-24 in the paint. They did just a marvelous job offensively against one of the best defensive teams, if not the best defensive team in all of college basketball. It's pretty impressive. You're certainly catching Kansas at a time where they're maybe they're hitting their stride. Now, again, 3 games ago they lost on the road in Ames and then had back-to-back home games against Oklahoma State and Houston on Saturday. So we'll see as they go back out onto the road, but it looks like they're turning corner a little bit for sure.
I mean, they're a top 4 team. They're the number 4 team. They take Houston's spot. They're 18-4, 6-3 in the conference. There are 3 losses in conference play. I mean, 2 of the 3 you don't expect. They lose at UCF by 5. They lose at West Virginia by 6, and the Mountaineers were shooting lights out. And then they lose at Iowa State, where Iowa State really controlled the game. They even got to double digits with the lead. KU just really did a great job of staying in that game. But, of course, what Iowa State did was for a long, into the first half and a lot of the second half, they were just lights out from 3-point range. Is that, I mean, I don't know how much research you've done into that, but would you say that would be the common denominator? Is that the opponents, when KU was playing on the road, was just shooting at a very high clip?
I think that's probably, generally speaking, probably accurate. I think Iowa State more than the other two. If I'm being perfectly blunt and honest here, I think West Virginia caught KU when they were off a little bit and maybe had a flat night. The UCF game, I think UCF, if the truth be told on that one, I think their length and athleticism bothered Kansas. So in a nutshell, that's, I think, the difference in those three.
Well, let's dig into now the Kansas Jayhawks and, just what they do and what they do well. And, back-to-back years, what does stand out to me is back-to-back years, they're actually the worst team in the Big 12 and one of the worst teams in the nation in bench points. They don't get a ton of contribution with points coming from their bench, but their starting five can be put up against anybody in the country, and KU has a good shot of winning. They are that good, and guys that are going to average over 31, 32 minutes a game, talking about the entire starting lineup.
Well, that's an interesting take because I think you're totally 1,000% accurate, but the real key to that thing is I think we all understand now what Hunter Dickinson and KJ Adams and Kevin McCullough and DeJuan Harris are all about, but KU started to kind of turn things around a little bit when they inserted Johnny Furphy into the starting lineup in place of Elmarco Jackson. And over his last 6 games, he's averaged nearly 16 points. He's shooting just crazy good from three-point range in that stretch. I'm talking like 55%, man. He's just been scorching hot. And he's athletic. He's long. I mean, he's basically a 6'9" two-guard. For those who don't know anything about him, he is from Melbourne, Australia, and reclassified to the 2023 class. Kind of blew up late, and KU was fortunate to see him and get him, and he's made a real difference. I think he's more physical than you think he is, even though he's only going to get stronger and better. And that's, again, you're right. They're a little bit weakish on the bench. They get a little bit from Elmarco Jackson. They get a little bit from time to time with, guys like Jamari McDowell and Parker Brown and Nicholas Timberlake, but they lean on those 5, and they should. Those 5 are awfully good.
KU has never been known to have the best player off the bench in Big 12. They've never. I mean, they've only had, believe it or not, one time ever has KU had the 6th man of the year in the Big 12, and that was Sharon Collins, and that was back in the day. You're talking 07-08 when the Jayhawks won the national championship. K-State's had a handful of 6th guys. So, yeah, they don't – and I was looking at their box score from the Houston game just a little bit ago. I mean, at the most, you had Elmarco Jackson playing 9 minutes. So, I mean, where K-State has to focus on getting their big 3 going, KU has a couple of extra guys that not only can score, but they're so good at passing the ball.
Yeah. Well, that's one of their biggest strengths, and they have several, of course, but they lead the country in assists. You look at that, they're averaging 21 assists per game. What does that mean? Well, K-State averages 14.5. So that's pretty much a step up. But they're also 2nd in the country in field goal percentage, 10th in assist-to-turnover ratio, which tells you they have a really great point guard who never turns it over. And then they're 14th in field goal percentage defense, which, that field goal percentage defense is a big stat, too. Their opponents are shooting just over 39% against them. So, yeah, those 5 guys are really, really good. They have boatload of experience with those guys. 116 games for Dickinson and 95 for KJ, 133 for McCullough, and 127 for DeJuan Harris. And you hear coaches say it every day when you do this for a living, man. Get old, stay old, and they are. There's no doubt about that. It's funny, too, you say you have to go back to Sharon Collins. After that, a season or 2 later, right, you remember people were talking about him being the best player in college basketball. So it is what it is. They get good players.
Why we can end it with this? Do you think give me your keys to what is it going to take for K-State? What stands out to you the most about what it's going to take K-State to win this game against KU in a game where I'm sure not many people are going to pick K-State to win because they've lost 4 in a row. Their spirits are probably down right now. Jerome Tang wants to find some energy in this team and at the same time control their own destiny and not become the victim. So, what really stands out of what has to go well for K-State to win?
Well, I think you could say the things that you hope happen anyway, like the crowd is juiced and really ready to explode. Okay? And K-State tonight, goes out and plays well in the first few minutes and captures some confidence, much like Iowa State did when they had Kansas at home, or West Virginia. You know, if those couple of things happen, you know, keep in mind now, it hadn't been that long ago that K-State beat Baylor here. So it isn't like they're not capable, right? But they have to do some things tonight so much better than they have been lately. KU's a decent rebounding team, obviously. K-State's got to compete with them there, not just get smoked on the glass. You can't. One thing that's hurt them here lately too is they seem to have a stretch of several minutes where they just don't play well on either end of the floor, and you cannot do that against a team like this and probably survive it. So there are tons of things, but I would highlight some of those right out of the gate. I really do hope that they hit a couple of 2 or 3 shots early and get the joint hopping a little bit, and then maybe we'll see game on. You never know. You got to do a lot of good things to beat a team like this, and I hope they have it in on tonight.
There's no doubt, and there's been worse K-State teams to beat better KU teams, so it's not impossible.
That's fact.
You never know. It's a rivalry game. Anything can happen. It's national television. It's Big Monday, ESPN. John Shabby and Jay Billis will be in the building. It's still a big one. Even though K-State's lost 4 in a row, it's still a huge game. The Cats get it done. Wyatt will find out what happens tonight. You start at 7 o'clock for pregame coverage and tip-off a few minutes after 8. Wyatt, thanks for squeezing me in, and we'll see you tonight in Bramlage.
As always, I appreciate the opportunity, buddy. Thank you so much.
That's the voice of the Cats, Wyatt Thompson, here on Wildcat Insider. We'll take a break. More on Wildcat Insider coming up next. We're back on Wildcat Insider. Mitch Fortner and AJ Shaw, just us two in studio. As Troy Coverdale will have coverage of Manhattan High School hoops tonight, online only, News Radio KMAN.com. As they host Washburn Rule. Get underway at about 6 o'clock, so as soon as this show is over, we will, online coverage will switch over to Manhattan High Hoops. Here on K-Man, we will have the Jeff Mitty show at 6 o'clock until 7. And then right at 7, of course, we'll start pregame coverage of the K-State men taking on the Kansas Jayhawks, who are now the number 4 team in the nation. They've won their last couple of games. Meanwhile, they're just 1-3 on the road in Big 12 play. Their only win on the road in the conference was just recently at Oklahoma State, who K-State just lost to without Bryce Thompson for the Cowboys. And KU won that game 90-66. Really wasn't a contest at all. So it goes without saying, K-State will have their hands full tonight with KU, which, by the way, tips off officially tonight at 8:07. So you'll have a few minutes extra to get inside Bramlage Coliseum tonight to watch the Cats and Jayhawks. And I'm sure the K-State students that are lined up out there to get into this game are chomping at the bit for the doors to open, because I'm sure they've been out there for hours. And by the way, what is it? What's the temperature right now, AJ?
45 in Manhattan.
So for the K-State KU game, that's a pretty solid temperature to be waiting outside. I remember the 2010 game. College Game Day was here. Let's see. I got in line. Well, the parking lot didn't open until 6. But
6 at night or 6 in the morning?
Well, 6 in the morning.
Okay.
It was, I think, a 5 o'clock tip.
Okay.
But College Game Day was there. So we lined up early so we could get into College Game Day. The whole order situation on how to line up, and I wasn't even a K-State student. And that was completely different, but it was by groups. And then if you didn't have a group, you join this other line and you get a number. And if you were within 1 through 50, you get into the game. If not, you're screwed. Or something like that. So I had to jump in that line right at 6 o'clock. I had to be at the starting line, ready to sprint to beat everybody else to this particular spot. And by the way, that day, I think it was about 15 degrees.
Oh, my goodness.
So once you left College Game Day, which we got in 2 hours early, which was nice, once that wrapped up, you're back outside for another 6 hours or something like that into the cold. And it was a long day. And by the way, that game went to overtime, and the Cats lost by like 2 or 3 points. So very long day.
That was a very good KU team, so.
Yes, it was.
33-3 that year.
I think K-State was K-State and KU both top 10 at that point.
K-State finished at year 7. Let me look here.
Because you're talking.
Yeah, K-State was 11.
Yeah, you're talking.
This was January of 2010.
Jacob pulling in shape.
Yes.
That was that year. By the way, if you haven't heard yet, man, are we doing something really awesome here over the next couple of months? That is Briggs Auto Lane, Passport to Cabo. We want to send you, along with Briggs Auto Lane and us, we want to send you to Cabo San Lucas. All expenses, paid trip that'll take place next February in Cabo with a 2-bedroom beachfront condo in Villa Valencia, which is a beautiful place, and a flight for 2 out of Manhattan Regional Airport. Now, there's more details to come, and that'll start next week, including our first location, our first sponsor location next week to get potential finalists signed up. So we're very much looking forward to this. We're just getting started. Stay tuned here to K-Man for more details to come very, very soon. We have not talked K-State women's basketball yet, who last week was the number 2 team in the nation. But last week also had to play 2 very tough road trips. Oklahoma last Wednesday, which is one of the hottest teams in America right now, and Texas, who matchup-wise, without Ayoka Lee, was going to be extremely tough. Cats lose to Oklahoma. Let's see, I lost my papers here. Cats lost to Oklahoma on the women's side. Final score was 66-63, which, by the way, was a really good game if you just want to watch college basketball and you're interested in what the top teams in the nation are up to. You were treated to a very solid game. You're talking about a game that had 13 lead changes and 10 ties. A back-and-forth seesaw contest where K-State was in it the entire time. Oklahoma, like K-State, they're just going blow for blow, trading shots for shots. K-State falls just a few points short. Kind of came down to that fourth quarter where Oklahoma was just a little bit better, and K-State shooting the basketball and turning it over was just a little bit too much. In that fourth quarter, K-State shot just 4 of 16 for 25%. A couple of those were 3-pointers, and those were early in the quarter for K-State to stay really close or take the lead against Oklahoma. The Sooners shot 46.2% in that fourth quarter. Skylar Van, who I mentioned last week for Oklahoma, was going to be a really tough one to stop. Like Gustin from BYU. Powerful forward, strong, knows how to get in position, and that's what she did a good job of doing. 21 points and 8 rebounds. Meanwhile, that was also something that was very pleasant to see for K-State was Gisela Sanchez. Had back-to-back games, 18 points, and we saw somebody come off the bench if Yoki was playing and now starting, which this is what you want. Depth, step up when minutes are available, fill in the shoes of somebody that's basically impossible to fill the shoes of, who's not a 5, but I'll be honest with you, didn't do a great job defensively from that position. You would see more Gabby Gregory try to take over that spot and body somebody up and try to play good defense, but that was still really tough. But on the offensive end, hit 3 threes, scored 18 points. She was K-State leading scorer, 15 as well from Serena Sendell, who played every single minute, was not going to come out of that game, and has been playing solid in Big 12 play. It is first team Big 12 level of play from Serena Sundell against the Oklahoma Sooners. Meanwhile, against the Texas Longhorns, K-State loses 61-54. Just a mismatch there for K-State. Texas being the more athletic team, being almost 100% healthy, with, of course, without Rory Harmon, who's out for the year with a knee injury. She's their point guard and a great defender. So, I mean, basically heading into that game, K-State obviously without Ayoka Lee, and now for a while Texas has been without Rory Harmon. But Texas, I mean, they controlled the game for the whole night. K-State just couldn't keep up with Texas, who was hitting shots, getting inside. K-State did have a stretch, though, at the end where they made it really interesting. They got within a couple of possessions, and then Texas was able to bring it back out to, 8 or 9 points, and K-State ends up losing by 7. The final score did not tell the whole story of the game. What K-State really struggled with was Texas getting those offensive rebounds and the putback points. The difference in the game to me was Texas offensive rebounding and second chance points. And that's what Texas does really well, being so athletic, having their bigs available. They're very talented, athletic bigs. They were grabbing those rebounds and getting those putbacks. Serena Sundell, 14 points, got a couple of rebounds, 8 assists in the game, 18 points off the bench. Eliza Maupin was back. She was really, to me, the true spark. And it was great to see off the bench. K-State got 27 points off the bench with Maupin and Zy Walker combining for 26. What you don't like seeing, though, is Briley Glenn, who can hit shots, Gabby Gregory, who's been hot and cold. They both don't score in the game. So I think the Oklahoma game, K-State would really want to have back. Texas, I just think without Aoka Lee is a really tough matchup, but I give K-State all the credit in the world for making a single-digit game, only losing the game by 7. They showed a lot of fight in that fourth quarter. But the K-State women are now 20-3, 8-2 in Big 12 play. It's not over with. K-State's fine. Actually, I think they have this wrong on the
9-2
on the box score. I was going to say, yeah, they're 9-2 in Big 12 play. They started 9-0. What's great is now they're going to have almost a week off before they host Oklahoma State on Saturday. Let's take a final break of the hour and take a look at the Big 12 scoreboard from this past Saturday next. Will we hear sandstorm tonight in Bramlage? I don't know, but I hope we do. Although there was that one time that Sandstorm was played at the under 4, Cats are up, and then KU Storm's back, and I think they win the game. After hearing Sandstorm, they really embraced the environment, and I think KU that night was more influenced by Sandstorm than K-State was. I can't pinpoint what year that was. I do remember that happening. All right, taking a look at the Big 12 scoreboard from this past Saturday. What clearly stands out about that, other than K-State losing to Oklahoma State, was KU beating Houston. And they did it in impressive fashion. KU scores 78 points against the number 1 defense in the nation. That was the most points Houston had given up. Now, of course, it's you're playing in Allen Fieldhouse. Wasn't really anything about the calls. It was KU having a much better first half than Houston. It was a 50-50 game in the second half. But KU dominated inside. KU was 78% from 2. 78%. That is insane. When you're playing against the best defense in the nation, incredible. You could be playing against the 200th best defense in the nation, and 78% is still insanely good. Houston, on the flip side, inside, because they had and KU took like 13 threes in the game. They barely had to shoot it. Houston was 40% from 2 in that game, so KU just really played a solid game. Meanwhile, what a sloppy, ugly fouls, technical fouls, ref-driven game that Baylor and Iowa State was on Saturday. Baylor squeaks out with the win 70-68. Baylor improves to 5-3 in Big 12 play. Also, shout out to Cincinnati. They go into Lubbock and beat Texas Tech 75-72 for their 4th win in Big 12 play. Taking a look at the Big 12 men's basketball standings, tied for first place is KU and Houston at 6-3. Already halfway through, 3 losses is first place in the Big 12. 5-3, tied for 3rd is Baylor, Iowa State, and Texas Tech. And right now, tied for 8th in the conference at 4-5 is Oklahoma, Cincinnati, Texas, and K-State. Hour 2 of Wildcat Insider is coming up after our local news, of course. That'll feature Mitch Palm against the Kansas Jayhawks. Stick around. You're listening to Wildcat Insider on Wildcat Insider.